Have you ever had this moment where you actually know what you want to say? Like you can feel the sentence inside you. But the second you open your mouth, everything gets stuck. And then you start doing that thing where you smile and nod and say something safe like, yeah, or exactly, or sounds good. And inside you are thinking, why can I understand so much English, but I cannot sound like me? Why does my brain go blank at the worst possible time? If that sounds familiar, I want you to stay with me because my most controversial opinion about fluent English is this. Most people are chasing the wrong kind of fluency. And the way we talk about fluency is making you feel worse, not better. Because somewhere along the way, fluent started to mean fast, perfect, impressive, never searching for words, never making mistakes, always sounding confident, always sounding native. And honestly, that version of fluent is not only unrealistic, it is also kind of not even the point. I have met plenty of native English speakers who are not smooth. They pause, they restart, they forget words, they say and like and you know. They tell a story and then they change direction halfway through. And no one calls them not fluent. But when you do those same completely normal human things, you feel like you failed. That is the problem. The standard is unfair, and it is messing with your head. Here is my controversial opinion in one sentence. Fluency is not the absence of mistakes. Fluency is the ability to keep going. It is your ability to stay in the conversation even when your English is not perfect. It is your ability to think and breathe and communicate and adjust in real time without panic. If you can do that, you are fluent in the way that actually matters. And I know, part of you might be thinking, but Emma, I want to speak beautifully. I want to speak like a confident professional. I want people to take me seriously. Of course you do, and you deserve that. But what I see all the time is that the desire to sound perfect is what blocks the ability to sound natural. Perfectionism doesn't create fluency, it kills fluency. Because perfectionism makes every sentence feel like a test. And when everything feels like a test, your body goes into protection mode. Your shoulders tighten. Your breathing changes. Your mind starts checking every word. And suddenly, the simple sentence you could easily say alone in your kitchen feels impossible in a meeting. Think about a normal work situation. You are in a meeting, and someone asks you a question that you understand. It is not a complicated question, but now all the pressure rushes in. You start translating in your head. You start searching for the exact right word. You start thinking about your accent. You start thinking about your grammar. And while you are thinking, the moment passes. Someone else jumps in. You feel small. You tell yourself, see, I am not fluent. But what really happened is not that you didn't know English. What happened is you tried to produce a perfect sentence under pressure and your brain froze. That is not an English problem. That is a safety problem. Your brain did not feel safe making a normal human mistake. If you like this calm, supportive style where we talk about what is really happening when you get stuck, you can subscribe to the channel. Totally optional, but if you want more episodes that help you speak with less pressure and more confidence, I would love to have you here. Now, let me go deeper into this because I want you to actually feel the difference between performance fluency and real fluency. Performance fluency is when you think fluency means sounding impressive. You focus on advanced vocabulary. You focus on perfect grammar. You focus on speed. You focus on never pausing. And because you are focusing on those things, your attention goes away from the conversation. You are not really with the person anymore. You are inside your head, trying to control the English. Real fluency is when your attention stays with the message. It is when you are present with the other person and you trust yourself to communicate, even if it comes out a little messy. Real fluency sounds like, let me think for a second. Real fluency sounds like, how do I explain this? Real fluency sounds like, I forgot the word, but it is like this. Real fluency sounds like, what I'm trying to say is, real fluency includes repairs. It includes pauses. It includes small mistakes. It includes personality. It includes you. And I know this might feel controversial because so many people have been taught that mistakes are the enemy. But mistakes are not the enemy. Silence is the enemy. Not the peaceful kind of silence. I mean the silence that comes from fear. The silence where you disappear in conversations because you are afraid your English will not be good enough. The silence where you have opinions, ideas, humor, warmth, and intelligence, but you keep it locked inside because you are trying to protect yourself. That silence is expensive. It costs you opportunities. It costs you connection. It costs you confidence. So if I could help you focus on one thing, it would be this. Stop trying to speak perfect English. Start trying to stay in the conversation. Let me give you a travel situation because this is where I see people either relax or completely shut down. You are at a hotel or a restaurant. You know the basics. You can order. You can ask questions. But the person speaks quickly or they use a word you do not know. And suddenly your brain says, danger. I do not understand everything. And then you freeze. And the funny thing is, you do not need to understand everything. You just need enough to keep going. You can ask them to repeat. You can say, sorry, can you say that again a little slower? You can say, what does that mean? You can say, so just to confirm, you mean this, right? That is fluency. Fluency is not understanding 100% of everything. It is knowing how to move forward when you do not. And a lot of adults struggle with this because they are used to being competent. You are used to being the person who knows what they are doing. You have experience, you have skills, you have status in your own language. So when you speak English and you feel less smooth, it feels like you are becoming a smaller version of yourself. That is a painful feeling. And if you have ever felt embarrassed after speaking, if you replay the conversation in your head for hours, if you think, why did I say it that way? I want you to know something. That is not because you are weak. That is because you care and you have high standards and you want to be respected. But high standards without compassion turn into self-punishment. And self-punishment makes you tight. and tension makes you slow, and slowness makes you feel less confident. It is a loop. So let's break the loop with a different definition of fluent. Here is the definition I want you to borrow for today. Fluent means I can express myself, even when it is not perfect, and I can handle the moment. That is it. That is the skill. And it is a powerful skill. Now, I want to talk about translating in your head because this is one of the biggest reasons people feel blocked. When you translate word by word, your brain is doing too many jobs at the same time. First, it has to create the idea in your first language. Then, it has to search for the matching words in English. Then, it has to check grammar. Then, it has to check pronunciation. Then, it has to check how you sound. That is not speaking. That is like doing math while running. Of course you get tired. Of course you freeze. The shift is learning to trust your English intuition, even if it is not perfect yet. And I know that sounds scary because you might think, but what if my intuition is wrong? What if I make a mistake? And my answer is, you will. And you will still be okay. Because mistakes are part of real communication. When native speakers make mistakes, they correct themselves and keep going. You can do the same. The goal is not to never be wrong. The goal is to not fall apart when you are wrong. If you want something practical right now, try this mindset in conversations. Aim for meaning first, accuracy second. Meaning first, accuracy second. That means you let yourself speak a simple sentence that carries your message, even if it is not the most elegant sentence in the world. And then later, after the conversation, you can improve it. But in the moment, you choose connection over perfection. Let me tell you something I have seen again and again with adults. The people who become confident speakers are not the ones who waited until they felt ready. They are the ones who practiced being uncomfortable and survived it. They practice speaking while imperfect. They practice speaking with an accent. They practice speaking while searching for words. And each time they did it, their nervous system learned, oh, I can do this. Nothing terrible happens. And that is how confidence grows. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is a history, and it is a record of moments where you spoke, it was not perfect, and you were still fine. And here is another controversial truth. Sometimes the people who sound the most fluent are actually hiding. They have memorized safe phrases. They can speak smoothly in situations they practiced. But when the conversation becomes real, when it becomes emotional or unexpected, they suddenly get stuck. Why? Because their fluency was performance. It was not flexible. Real fluency is flexible. Real fluency can handle surprise. Real fluency can handle someone interrupting you. Real fluency can handle a joke you do not understand. Real fluency can handle saying, wait, I did not catch that. Can you explain? So if you have ever felt like, I can talk about my job, but I cannot tell a story, or I can do small talk, but I cannot debate, or I can write emails, but I cannot speak in meetings, that is normal. It does not mean you are bad at English. It means your English is not yet flexible in those situations. And flexibility comes from giving yourself permission to be a little messy while you grow. Let's talk about the fear of sounding stupid, because this is a big one. I hear it all the time, and I feel it in people even when they do not say it out loud. You're afraid that if you make a mistake, people will think you are not intelligent. But here is what I want you to remember: mistakes do not make you sound stupid. Fear makes you sound smaller. When you apologize too much, when you speak too quietly, when you disappear, when you over-explain, that is what changes how people perceive you. Not because they judge you, but because they cannot access you. They cannot see your real personality. I have watched learners make a grammar mistake and still sound confident because their energy was clear. They spoke with intention. They kept going. They used simple words and they owned them. And I have watched learners say a perfect sentence but sound unsure because they were tense and apologizing with their body language. So yes, words matter, but your presence matters more than you think. What does it mean to own your English? It means you speak at your pace. It means you pause without shame. It means you say, "Let me rephrase that," and you rephrase it. It means you do not treat your accent like an emergency. It means you trust that people want to understand you. And if they do not understand, it is a normal problem to solve together, not a personal failure. And I want to add something here that I think people do not say enough. Sometimes you are not stuck because your English is not good. You are stuck because you are trying to protect your identity. You want to sound like the competent version of yourself. And when you cannot access that version in English, you panic. So the work is not only language, the work is letting yourself be a full adult in English, even if you are a little awkward sometimes, because awkward is allowed. Awkward is human. Awkward is temporary. And honestly, awkward is often kind of charming. Have you ever met someone who speaks with effort and you can feel their sincerity? Most people respond to that with respect, not with judgment. So, what do you do the next time you feel blocked? First, slow down your body. Not your words, your body. Drop your shoulders, take a small breath. Remind yourself, I do not need a perfect sentence. I need a clear message, and then start with something simple. Start with, I think, or from my experience. Or the main point is, give yourself a beginning you can step on like a solid rock, and as you speak, if you lose a word, do not slam the brakes. Keep the engine running. Use a simpler word. Describe it. Go around it. That is not cheating. That is communication. And after the conversation, if you want to improve, do it with kindness. Instead of replaying the whole thing like a disaster movie, pick one moment and say, next time I want to say it like this. That is it. One improvement, not 10. Not a full analysis of your personality, one small upgrade. That is how you build fluency without crushing yourself. I also want you to know that feeling blocked does not mean you are going backward. Sometimes it happens when you are leveling up. Sometimes your brain is reorganizing. Sometimes you are tired. Sometimes you are stressed. Sometimes you are talking to someone intimidating. Sometimes the topic is unfamiliar. That is real life. Native speakers also feel less articulate when they are tired or nervous. So please do not use one hard moment as evidence that you cannot speak. Use it as evidence that you are human. So if I had to say my controversial opinion one more time, I would say it like this. Fluent English is not a finish line where you finally become perfect. Fluency is a relationship with yourself while you speak. It is how safe you feel. It is how willing you are to be seen. It is your ability to stay present, even when you are not controlling every detail. And when you build that kind of fluency, the other things improve naturally. Your vocabulary grows. Your sentences get smoother. Your pronunciation becomes clearer. But it happens because you are speaking more, not because you are judging more. Before we end, I want you to imagine something. Imagine you are in a conversation in English and you feel that familiar panic rising. The heat in your face, the racing thoughts, the pressure to sound right. Now imagine you choose a different response. You breathe. You say, "Give me a second." You smile not to hide, but to stay warm. You say your idea in a simple way. Maybe you make a small mistake and you keep going anyway, and the conversation continues. And later you realize that was it. That was the moment. That was fluency, not perfect, but real. That is the fluency I want for you, the kind that makes you feel free, the kind that lets you be yourself, the kind that does not require you to become someone else to be respected. You are allowed to be in progress. You are allowed to sound like you. And you are allowed to take up space in English, even with an accent, even with pauses, even with mistakes, especially with those things, because they mean you are doing the brave work of speaking. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, "I am not fluent because I paused," I want you to replace that thought with this one. I paused because I was thinking. I paused because I care about my message. I paused because I am human. And I kept going. That is fluency.